So the first of these assignments has to do with picking all the flowers on an island. Now the island's square, there's no water within it, and the trick is that you don't know where the flowers are placed on the island. I can place them anywhere. So your goal is to have a Jeroo that can go to every single square on the island and pick up a flower if it's there. Now, to begin with, a good way to start doing this is to break the problem down into smaller pieces. So to begin with, can I create a Jeroo up here? That's going to be step one. So for a Jeroo, you say Jeroo with a capital J, give it a name. So there we go. And then you say a new Jroot with an equal sign. If you say nothing in the parentheses here, by default it starts in the upper left, facing to the right. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to start here, take a step. It's going to ask me to save it. There we go. So it does create the Jroot. Notice that there's a little arrow up here. All right, so next thing. Can I make it pick up one flower and take one step? So the first thing I should probably do is check to see if there is a flower here. How do I do that? So in the language summary, so I need to do something that checks the state of my map. So that's going to be an if statement. So I take an if and say something inside the parentheses, and then have a set of braces with whatever happens inside of it. So if something is going to go in there, then I have a set of braces. So if that's the case, I need to pick up a flower. So I use the name of my Jeroo and say pick. So if there is a flower here is really what I want to know. So if I'm in this spot and there's a flower, I want to pick it up. So if I go into my Boolean methods, those are the things that you can put inside of an if statement. You can also put them inside of a while statement. Let's see, flower here. This is if it has a flower, if it's facing a direction, is flower. All right, that sounds like something that I want. And then I need to put a relative direction. So the relative directions, you can have left, right, ahead, or here. Any of those can be placed inside an is flower. Notice is facing is called a compass direction, so that's a different thing. That's not a relative direction. Compass directions are northeast, west, and south. So is facing, I actually have to put in an overall direction. That's the only one of these statements that requires something other than a relative direction. So g dot is flower, and then I have another set of parentheses, and inside of that I put the direction. All right, let's see if this goes. So it takes a step. We look, is there a flower here where this guy is? There is, so it goes inside of the if statement, and he picks it up. Now this seems like something I'm going to be using a lot. So what I might want to do is I might want to make this a method that the Jeroos can use. So in order to do that, I'm going to go over to the Jeroo methods. Method, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this check flower. You can either put the brace, the opening one here, next to the main method, or you can go to the next line. It turns out it doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code here and put it into this one here. Now, when you're inside of a Jeroo method, you don't actually need to use the name. In fact, you can't use the name anymore. So I'm going to erase the G period on both of these commands. And instead here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the name of my Jeroo dot the name of the method with open and close parentheses on the end and a semicolon at the end. So now what's going to happen is I take a step, it goes to the method I created, and it walks over to the Jeroo method side and actually starts running this. So whenever you see a pattern, what you probably want to do is take that pattern out of your main code and make it a separate method. By the way, when you use, in this example, g.checkFlower, every method inside of here, it's assuming that it's applying to that particular Jeroo that it was called on. So isFlower is applying to this guy. The pick method is applying to this guy. And that's how it knows what to do. All right, so that's checking a flower. What if I want to take one step? I probably need to check to make sure there's not water ahead in order to make a jump, in order to go forward. So I should probably say something like, there's an isWater command, which has a relative direction. So if isWater ahead, except that I don't want to do something if there's water ahead. I want to do something if there is not water ahead. So how do I make this thing the opposite of that? So there's a isWater, but there's no command which says if there is not water. Well, kind of. What you end up doing is you actually use an exclamation point in front of it, and that makes it the opposite of whatever it was. So this says if there is not water ahead, then do something, which is what I want to do. So then I'm going to take one step. So it does my flower stuff, and if there's not water ahead, it hops, and that'll keep it from jumping in the water. Now, what about taking multiple steps? Is there any way that I can do this over and over again? Well, whenever you want a certain section of code repeated, you surround it by using a while statement. So for example, while something here, which I'll figure out in a second, do these steps over and over again. Now, it's not technically necessary, but it's a lot easier to see if every time that you open up a new set of braces, you take everything inside it and tab it over. That way I can easily glance at my code and say, oh, all of this code is inside my while statement, and I can tell that because it's tabbed over. This is a formatting thing that's, while strictly not necessary, is really useful and highly recommended for your code. In fact, later on, it'll be required. So anytime that you open up a new brace, you tab everything over. So I did that in my if statement, and then all of this is tabbed over because it's in the while statement, and all of this is tabbed over because it's in the main method. Something that some people like to do is they also like to put in comments to show which braces are matching. You are certainly welcome to do that. So this is the begin of the while. This is the end of the while. So the two slashes mean that it ignores the rest of the line, so I can leave those as labels for myself. So this is the end of the if, begin of the if, begin main, end main. So it's an easier way, if you leave these labels, it might make it easier for you to be able to tell if they match up. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to actually do this statement basically while there's not water ahead, so I keep doing this over and over again. So not is water ahead. So it goes inside, picks the flower, moves forward, picks the flower, and then while there's not water ahead, it just keeps doing this. So let's speed it up and see where it gets to. All right. So now, once I've done this, I need to do something about turning right and then doing the other line. So I should probably do the check flower again. I should make sure I use exactly the same capitals. I should then turn right, hop, and then turn right again. Well, I should check for a flower. By the way, this is not the most efficient way to do this. You may already have figured out an easier way to do it. And then turn right again. And then I need to do another line. Well, this is basically doing a line of stuff. Let's go ahead and make that a method as well. So I'm going to create a new method. And this is going to be method one line. And it's going to have basically all that stuff I had in the other one. So all of this is going to go over there. And then watch out, because you have to, when you go inside a Jeroo method, you need to get rid of the g dot part. And then over here, this becomes one line. And now I can call that again down here. So it goes through, does the right turn, does another line. Outstanding. So that gets me started. And that's the kind of pattern you're going to do. Now that I have 2 lines, I need some way to repeat them. So I'm probably going to want another while loop that goes around all of this. That allows me to do 2 lines at a time. Now this part's going to be tricky, what goes in this while statement. It actually turns out you're going to need to be able to deal with a couple of different conditions. For example, check to see if you're facing a particular direction and there is water to your left and water ahead or something like that. That's where we have and or statements. So you can combine 2 things that are conditions using and or. So the ampersand, that's 2 ampersands in a row, is you hold down Shift and 7. The or statement on most keyboards is just above the Enter key. You hold down Shift and that. It's a vertical bar. You need 2 of those for an or statement. The basic idea is if you have an and statement, so for example, G dot is water ahead and G dot is facing east, you do it like this, where you have an and statement between 2 conditions. And it's possible one of them has a not statement in front of it as well. The only time that this statement is going to be true is if both of these are true. The or statement, 2 vertical bars, if either one of these or both is true, then the statement is true and it goes inside of it. Hopefully that gets you started on the picking flowers.